Hi, it's Rednar. Today we're gonna talk about book lists. Why are they important? How can we forge new lists in Storylace's List Forge? What are the different kinds of lists that we can create? What are they used for? How can we participate in other people's book lists? In this video, I'll explain the answer to all of these questions so that by the end of the video, you know how to harness this powerful and flexible tool for book lovers. Book lists have been a super popular concept for a very long time. You've undoubtedly heard about lists of bestsellers, lists of most anticipated books for a certain year, lists for a competition or award where they're trying to find the best book in a category, or maybe simpler stuff. Perhaps a list of candidate books for a book club that's trying to pick what they're gonna read next. Or maybe a group of wise friends who got together to forge a list of the best epic fantasy books the world has ever seen. In Storylace, collections are also book lists, however, these are more for your personal use, there to organize your library. I'll leave in the description below a link to a previous video where I talked about collections. But book lists, as we know them in Storylace, are more of a community resource. They are meant to be seen by the community and people can participate in them. And they are very important because they let you see how other people are organizing certain groups of books among the vast sea of books that there are out there. This is the list forge, and if we go to create new list and then click on about, we can see examples of what we can use lists for. And if we scroll down a little bit, we see fields like the title, the description, but let's focus on these two. By understanding this, we'll be able to harness the power of this flexible tool to the maximum. There are three types of lists: red list, book list, and poll. And there are two levels of contributor access, public and private. First, let's talk about the subtle difference between a red list and a book list. A book list is essentially a list to which someone could add any book, even if they haven't read it. If somebody created a list of the best sci-fi books, and they create a book list instead of a red list, I may have heard of some sci-fi books that I've heard that they're very good. I haven't read them myself, but I would be able to add them to that list. So this list, essentially its characteristic is that someone can add books that they haven't read. And that's why it's perfect for creating, for example, a list of anticipated books coming out next year, for example. Nobody has read them because they haven't come out, but we can still add them here and create this list of anticipated books. Another good use case is for book clubs scheduling their yearly reads. Perhaps for next year we already know what are the books we're going to read each month, but we haven't read them. So this is again a great choice because we can add books that we haven't read. Now the red list, on the other hand, and as you can imagine by the name, is a list to which someone can only add books that they've read. This makes it a great choice, for instance, for reading challenges. If you want to set a reading challenge to read N books about a certain topic, then people participating in the challenge will only be able to add books that they've marked as read. And in Storylace, there are several book statuses such as under consideration, to be read, and so on. So basically people will have to put the books with the status as read or being reread would also count, and they would be able to add those kind of books to that list. This is also a great choice, for instance, for getting book recommendations. Maybe you want to get book recommendations from people that have read the books that you're being recommended. And it's also listed here, another good use case to gather wise friends and forge a sacred scroll. And we'll come back to that a little bit later. But essentially, this is also a good type of list to get together with friends and forge a list of some specific thing that everybody has an opinion on. The final type of list is a poll. And the difference between a poll and a book list is actually very subtle. With a book list, as we mentioned, anyone can add any book even if they haven't read it. With a poll, people can vote for books. So essentially, with a book list, they can mention books. With a poll, they can vote for books. The only people that can add books to a poll are the people who have editor access. So suppose I was making a list where I add 5 books and I'm asking which one of these should I read next. The poll would be a great choice. If I had chosen a book list for this one, maybe someone can add a book that I'm not interested in, but by setting it to a poll, they can only vote for the books that are available in the selection of books in that list. And that's the very subtle but important difference between a poll and a book list. I want to quickly touch on the subject of the contributor access level of lists. If we go to a red list or a book list, we can see that the contributor access can be public or allowed contributors only. This simply means who can add books to them. It doesn't mean that it will be hidden if it's private from the rest of the community. As I was mentioning at the beginning of the video, book lists are community resources, so they are always visible to anyone. In the case of polls, this bit here simply means who can vote on the list. If you select public, anyone can vote on it, anyone from the Storylace community. And if you select only allowed contributors can vote, well, maybe this makes sense for your book club. Perhaps you want to create a poll where you're deciding what book to read next, and you want only people from your book club to be able to vote for what book to read next. To wrap up the explanation of the kinds of lists that we have, I want to mention a fun bit. If you select a red list and you mark it as allowed contributors only, for instance, you're getting together with friends to forge a new list, well, this list will have a wisdom level, and the wisdom level is simply the sum of the wisdom crystals of all the people that are contributing to it. Wisdom crystals are obtained by completing Storylace quests. So this is a very fun addition, and we like to call this list Sacred Scrolls. And for instance, if you were creating the list of the best epic fantasy books that have ever existed with your friends, well, it would have a certain wisdom level to it. As you browse through the list forge, you'll notice that some lists have a little badge that says verified. This simply means that this is an official list of some kind. It could be a book industry list from an institution, a competition, an award, and so on. And we at Storylace have verified that this list has the right books in it. Besides voting on lists and adding books to them, there are a couple of ways in which you can interact with them. The first and most obvious is that we can upvote lists. The second one is that if you click on this little button here that says challenge myself, you can actually challenge yourself to read any number of books of any list you want. So for instance, in this one I could set myself to read 3 books from this list. And if I want to find people who have also accepted the challenge to read n books from this list, I can go to the challengers tab, and here I can see who those people are, even though I cannot see their challenge. Those challenges are personal. Lastly, I want to mention that we use Storylace lists as inspiration for what quests to create next. So for instance, for this one, Truth of Pirates, it's a list that someone created, and we already created a quest as a tribute to it. And well, we invite you to create lists, and who knows, maybe your list will be the next one that has a quest created for it. We can't wait to see what creative lists you come up with. We created the List Forge to be this powerful and flexible tool that you can use to enrich your reading journey, and we hope it serves you well. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.